A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, it is a period of true love and high adventure, with pirates, princesses, giants, miracles, fencing, and a frightening assortment of wild beasts. This is my favorite book in all the world, though I have never read it.
Hello there, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways that George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. I'm your host, Sam Marchioni. Joining me today is River Lane.
I'm only mostly dead, which means I am partially alive.
And for the very first time, Jill V. Friedman.
Hello, you never had it so good.
Oh, this is going to be fun. I'm loving what the Chance Cube is giving me right now because I got to revisit one of my favorite movies, 1987's The Princess Bride. I think we've all seen it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is there any one of us who cannot quote this movie like verbatim?
Couldn't be me.
I can't do it at the level I can do some MASH episodes, which is down to the line with the same intonation, but I'm getting pretty close.
This movie has such a deep impact on me that I actually picked my college purely because William Goldman went there. Oberlin for life, woohoo! And I have my little 30th anniversary edition sitting here with us.
Nice.
Oh my god, this movie.
Is this a perfect movie? Sources say probably.
It's very close to perfect. I rewatched it with my parents and my dad just laughed as he watched me within the first 5 minutes because I had this big, goofy grin on my face just seeing Robin Wright and Carrie Elwes in their schlubby surf burlap. And they're so young and pretty and they're looking at each other with such love in their eyes.
What did they put in 80s Carrie Elwes? What did they put in him?
I don't know, but gosh, he was something else.
He's just the sweetest. I read his memoir to prep for this because he has a lot of fun behind the scenes stories in there, and he's so cute and so nice, and he and Robin Wright were absolutely smitten with each other. Like, they never dated or anything, but it's such a pure and wholesome showmance.
I just love how much love is clearly in every frame of this movie.
Oh yeah. William Goldman, may his memory be a blessing, has said this is his favorite thing. He wants it on his tombstone, and I hope he got his wish because he left us in 2018.
I just like to think that his gravestone has a CRT TV in it and just has this movie on loop.
Oh my god. I that headcanon accepted.
That's the ultimate
I could
version.
absolutely believe it. I'm not 100% sure how you'd put rocks on the top of that because I believe that's what Jewish people do for mourning.
I'm imagining us like an actual like stone encased CRT.
Yeah.
So that like
with
the rocks
enough to
on
keep the fans ventilating.
Right, exactly.
And a little VHS player.
Exactly.
Carved into
You have to
it too.
This movie spawned into existence on VHS. I technically have only
100%.
ever seen it on DVD. But, I don't think, and I had to watch it digitally for this, but that's not the correct way to view this movie. This movie feels
I have to poke around. I have my VHS copy of it somewhere.
If you don't see the TriStar unicorn running with the da-da-da-da, you're not watching the movie.
Yeah, exactly. there are certain movies that I'm like, this spawned into existence on VHS, and the fact that it exists on any other medium is A, miracle of God, but also B, incorrect.
It has to be watched on a CRT screen.
Yeah. It's also been really interesting because not only did I watch it on digital, but we put it on my family's, big flat screen, and the color was different. The color was much more bright and vibrant, and I'm like, on the one hand, this is kind of cool because I'm picking up details I haven't ever seen on the movie before. On the other hand, it's weird that Vizzini's velvet thingy is now a bright green instead of that deep, rich, mossy green that I'm so used to in my brain space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But God, I love so much about this movie. I love the cast. I love the chemistry. I love the dialogue. I love how not a single second is wasted in this movie. give me short-ass movies. Like, all respect to Martin Scorsese as he deserves it, but, like, 98 minutes. I'm in, I'm out, I didn't have to pee.
Yeah. Like there's no moments you can cut that don't enhance it, that you wouldn't lose something vital by losing
This movie moves like a rocket.
mhm.
The first sword fight is 22 minutes in. And because I timed it. This movie is an hour and 16 minutes. And its first sword fight is 22 minutes in. And I'm like, oh hell yeah. I miss short movies so much. But yeah, no, when you're talking about like the amount of like love and chemistry and vibes, there are so many lines in this movie. Like there are the ultra quotable ones that we all have imprinted on our brain that basically come with us if you were born into a nerd family. They were imprinted on your brain since birth. Like, have fun storming the castle.
My parents will do that. They'll say, have fun storming the castle. They'll say, think it'll work. And what's the response you're supposed to give?
It'll take a miracle.
Yes, that is the correct thing. My parents always say they're doomed. I'm like, no, you're saying it wrong.
My parents have been saying have fun storming the castle for as long as I have been alive. Like that's just a family in joke. It handshake spoons from Monsters Inc. are just family in jokes. It is only said by my father when I have just gone on the most insane rampage of a tangent and he doesn't understand a word that's come out of my mouth. He will just look at me and go, spoons.
You have to understand, River. Now I'm using that in the future.
Of course.
I mean, when I was growing up, this was the perennial, oh, Jill's homesick, I'll run to the video store and get The Princess Bride.
That's actually really funny because, you know, the whole framing device of the grandson and the perfect grandfather, God, I loved Peter Falk in this so much, but the whole joke of the Princess Bride book is that it is an abridged good parts version of a really dense historical tome. And I swear to God, as a small child, I used to fast forward through the parts with the kid and the grandpa because I just wanted to get back to my pretty princess swashbuckling adventure.
Which is so funny because one of the jokes I have written in my notes is it's like, yeah, this like is a perfectly normal, it's like, you know, it's this fantasy land and then all of a sudden Greenland.
Right, exactly. Like, Gilder and Florin don't exist, but
Australia does.
Australia, Spain, Greenland.
Yeah.
So according to the original book, Buttercup lives in a time that is after Paris but before France, and blue jeans exist, and like...
I mean, so that would make it the 1800s.
Yeah, you would think, but they're all dressed like they're from the 1400s, and Florin is supposedly somewhere between where Sweden and Germany are.
That's an ocean, I thought?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I had a shower thought this morning about what if the Dread Pirate Roberts encountered the Our Flag Means Death people?
Oh my...
And I was like, well, how does that work timeline-wise? And then I was like, who cares?
How would you wrote in some unusual size work timeline-wise?
Right. If the crack fic doesn't already exist, I'll eat my metaphorical hat.
I mean, you know what? The Dread Pirate Roberts shows up on the Revenge.
Well, the Dread Pirate Roberts is supposedly based on an actual pirate, Bartholomew Roberts.
Ah.
Yeah, and so
might be OFMD
compliant.
Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to settle for the great value version of this pennant belongs to us and signifies the end of life. Which seems absolutely like a joke William Goldman would make.
Absolutely.
My favorite things about this movie, first of all, yes, it's all the hyper-quotable lines, but it's also like the little lines that like get kind of lost in the shuffle. Like, life is pain. Anybody who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something. Highly
Says
underrated.
Differently.
Iconic.
Sorry.
Exactly!
It's a combination of autism and just having this movie fucking memorized.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Or the exchange of, you know, I'd love to watch you work, but I got all these things I gotta do. I'm swamped!
I'm swamped. I've got my wife to murder.
When we were watching that with my mom, what she said was, that is a homosexual relationship if ever I saw one. And I'm like, you're not wrong!
I literally wrote, I believe these two are in love, actually.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
They kind of are. It's the Count did have a wife in the book.
Yeah, and that's superfluous.
But she just like clothes and shit, and she actually tried to flirt with Wesley, and that was how Buttercup realized that she was in love with Wesley.
LMAO. Is it just me, or does Humperdinck sort of look like he could be the father of the prince or the guy for the Knight's Tale?
Rufus
kind
Sewell?
of does. But
If you took this era of him and put him next to the guy from A Knight's Tale.
You mean,
They
do you mean Rufus Sewell, like the villain
Yeah.
character? Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
they could believably play father and son.
So the thing about that is that if you are in a movie and Christopher Sarandon shows up, you're about to have a bad time. If you're in a movie and Rufus Sewell shows up, you're about to have a bad time. So this is
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, that's clearly what's happening.
they have two very different kind of villain vibes, but both of them are so eminently watchable.
Yeah.
And
Now also
this
now I
movie,
need a
just
movie
so
where it's
perfectly
Rufus
cast.
Sewell, Christopher Sarandon, and Eric Roberts, but they all play like genuinely nice dudes.
They seem like genuinely nice guys. Like, I was reading the story of Chris Sarandon, and he brought his daughters onto set because they really wanted to meet Andre the Giant. And they saw Andre the Giant, and they both ran away screaming, and Chris was like, "Oh my god, Andre, I'm so sorry." And Andre's like, "They run from me, or they come to me. It's fine, boss." Apparently, Andre the Giant called everybody boss.
He speaking of people with good vibes.
He seemed like the sweetest man.
You know what this movie has? This movie has the same amount of, like, you know, good vibe energy as, like, you know all those videos where, like, a capybara is chilling in the middle of a
Yes.
field of crocodiles? This movie is a capybara!
Completely. Yes.
Wait, is a capybara a rodent?
Yes,
I
it is a
believe so.
rodent of unusual size!
And it is a rodent of unusual size.
Also, rodents of unusual size handshake every creature in Labyrinth. I know that you are a man in a suit, and yet I believe you completely.
That actually brings me to, because I did not fully go into this. This is a Degree 5, which means it features predominantly crew members, one among whom is Danny Blackner, who is one of the ROUS performers. He was actually credited as an Ewok in Return of the Jedi, but the reason I decided that this is a Degree 5 is because there are just so many other crew members on this. But the big ones that people would probably know are Peter Diamond and Bob Anderson, who did stunts and sword mastery for Empire Strikes Back and the original trilogy in general.
Neat.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
the
sword fighting.
Yeah, the
So
sword fighting
good.
was just top tier.
You can absolutely go on YouTube and see these fights redone with lightsabers.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
That's
12 out of
that's
10.
what people do for learning how to do motion tracking. They're like, I'm gonna take one of the best sword fights ever and put lightsabers on it.
Yeah, like, so first of all, the poor stunt people who have to get thrown down the hill.
Oh god, those poor people. Well, they weren't gonna do it to Carrie Elwes. He broke his toe getting on Andre the Giant's ATV to go up to the set.
Oh,
And
boy.
so, like, when he stretches out on that tree branch, that's just him trying to get weight off his toe.
Yeah. And apparently Rob Reiner wanted to reschedule the shoot days, and Carrie said no.
I mean, as long as it's the third act stuff, he doesn't really need to move around much.
Well, they shot it out of order, so
Right.
they had to shoot around that, and so the duel was one of the last things they did, and even while he had his broken toe, every second Carrie wasn't filming, Bob Anderson or Peter Diamond was over here like, are you practicing your sword gestures? Are you getting the muscle memory down?
Well, the thing that really sort of struck me this most recent rewatch, even though obviously we all know I have a secret, I'm not left-handed. I have a secret, neither am I. Like, for whatever reason, this most recent rewatch was the one where I sat down and thought about what it must have taken to get two people in that fighting shape with that much mastery of swordsmanship, not just in their right hand, in their dominant hand, but in their non-dominant hand.
Oh yeah, Mandy Patinkin went for like 2 months before pre-production officially started. And so he was already way ahead of Carrie Elwes before they started training with Bob and Peter.
Incredible. Man, it's also very funny because, again, I am me. So Mandy Patinkin in my head is both Inigo and Rube from Dead Like Me. So Mandy Patinkin is perpetually dad-shaped in my head, like grumpy, stern dad-shaped. And watching that this time around, I was watching and I'm like, yeah, Nico is a little dad-shaped. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And it is interesting because, you know, some people, like, God forbid the Princess Bride ever get remade as anything other than, like, the home movie version, which we can cover as a degree too, thanks to some of the people who appear in it. But, like, if you were going to do it again, some people argue that it would need a Latino Inigo, even though Inigo is Spanish, and Hispanic Latino is a Venn diagram, but not a circle.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing you might not know about from the books is that Fezzik was written as Turkish.
Oh, interesting.
So, as perfect as Andre the Giant is, and you can argue that this is fine because this was fine from an adaptation standpoint because it was the director making, not the director, the screenwriter adapting his own book and making that choice, and like, that is Fezzik.
But also, there's nothing
it's
inherent.
a little bit whitewashing.
There's nothing inherently Turkish about the character. Like, there's no,
Fezzik
like
does
obviously
have a whole ass backstory in the book. Honestly, my position is just, if you're gonna remake The Princess Bride, either you make it gay or you make it like an all POC cast, possibly both.
I've seen the only good Princess Bride remake picture I've seen, and I think it was the one that was running around Tumblr a couple of years ago, where what you do is you change who the framing device is, and you have it be a little black girl who's sick, or a little, you know, some girl of color who's sick, and it's her imagination about how the story is playing out, and you use that to, like, quote unquote, like, justify why everyone's changing.
I could totally see that, because that is a very fairy tale vibe to it.
And you could also apply that to, you know, the original movie where, you know, 1987 Fred Savage, like, what is he going to conjure if you hear a giant named Fezzik? Like, unless he's explicitly told, oh, this guy is Turkish, I don't think, like, that's new information to me, and I've read the book. Granted, it was like 20 something years ago, so I generally, there's whole swaths of things that I don't recall, but like,
I mean, I just love the book so much for its pure absurdity, because it also acts like the events of the book actually fucking happened. Like, if you get the 30th anniversary edition, William Goldman makes it sound like, oh yeah, I took my non-existent imaginary grandson, who I have thanks to my non-existent son, I took him to the Florin Morgenstern Museum, and we saw the actual six-fingered sword and a cast of Fezzik's hands, and we read S. Morgenstern's notes on the original Princess Bride book. And I need to be very clear, listeners, there is no S. Morgenstern, in case that was not clear. S. Morgenstern is not real, Florin is not real, and rodents of unusual size, I don't think they exist.
Unless there's a capybara.
Unless it's a capybara.
True.
Also, speaking of the stunt people, shout out to the stunt person that just gets flung at Carrie Elways as a rodent of unusual size. Just the off-screen.
No, that was actually a puppet. That was a puppet.
Yeah, but like the sentiment still stands. She's getting flung.
Well, it's actually, there's a funny story about that, because here's the thing. They threw that stuffed rat at Carrie, and then on like the last day of shooting in the fire swamp, Danny Blackner did not show up, and he was the only person who could fit in the ROUS costume and was union certified or insured, whatever you want to call it, to be in the combat scene with Carrie. So we're like, fuck, what are we going to do? And they're like, get the fake rat and Carrie try to fight it. And apparently it looked ridiculous. And finally Danny shows up and he got pulled over by a cop and put in the drunk tank.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was like, I think I remember this.
That's what you get for drinking with Andre the Giant. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, there are plenty of stories about drinking with Andre the Giant in Carrie Elwes' book, which again, I highly recommend it. It's called As You Wish, because of course it is.
Of course,
and if you can, also get the audiobook version, because he gets pretty much everybody to contribute to the book, and they, for the most part, contribute their voices to the book as well.
Ooh, I might have to investigate that. Years ago, when the book first came out, he did a book tour, and there was a screening of The Princess Bride at the Long Center, which is a big theater here in Austin. It's like a performing arts center, and it was done in conjunction with the Alamo Drafthouse, and you got with your ticket a copy of the book and like a special commemorative glass, and he did a Q&A afterwards, and it was wonderful. Like, he told a lot of the stories that are in the book, and it was just sort of, it was special to sit in a room even as large as a large performing arts center theater, knowing I'm sitting in the same room as Carrie Elways as I'm watching The Princess Bride.
Yeah, I'm going to do that later this year. That was one of my Christmas presents. My family is taking me to a screening and Q&A with Carrie Elways, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to absolutely lose my fucking mind.
There are very few actors who are so shaped by their by a role as much as Carrie Elways is. Like, you think of Carrie Elways in your head, and the only two things that exist in my head about or three characters technically. I haven't seen Ella Enchanted, but I know he's the evil uncle in Ella Enchanted because I've watched Laura's video about it. This, and then the cat. He is the dub in The Cat Returns.
That's right.
He's done
where he is essentially
he was in Saw.
I've never seen Saw.
He was in Robin Hood Men in Tights. I'm actually really fond of this piece he did before Princess Bride called Lady Jane, where he plays the husband of Lady Jane Grey opposite Helena Bonham Carter.
Ooh.
Okay, hang on.
And he's so young and fluffy in that. Like, his hair, it's so floofy.
Sam,
I adore it.
Sam, you're getting a stupid tangent. But it's sort of connected. But the reason, for those of you who have not seen The Cat Returns, don't. It's a weird movie. It is technically a sequel to Whisper of the Heart. It's essentially about this girl who ends up in a cat kingdom. She gets turned into a cat. Carrie Elways is essentially playing the Dread Pirate Roberts as a cat.
Is it Anne Hathaway or Natalie Portman who voices
Anne Hathaway?
That's right.
Yeah, it's Anne Hathaway. It's a very Princess Mia performance.
Yeah, and it's not implied that she may or may not have a thing for this cat baron played by Carrie Elways, who again is essentially playing the Dread Pirate Roberts.
I mean, I don't blame her.
I also do not blame her, but it does put this weird.
She also spends most of that movie turning into a cat.
Yeah, but it's just a weird movie.
Very weird movie.
But like the enduring effect of the Dread Pirate Roberts is the fact that movie is everyone's furry awakening for those who have seen it.
Not me.
Sam was not prepared for that one.
So another crew person, Nick Alder, was a special effects supervisor, and they had a lot of craftspeople working. The Fire Swamp has a lot of Dagobah vibes, and I do keep expecting Yoda to pop out around the corner.
Lol. You're not wrong.
You're gonna tell me that Wesley isn't a Jedi?
Wesley is the kind of person who, like, if he were a woman and in a certain 2015 to 2019 trilogy, people would be pointing at him yelling, "Mary Sue!"
I mean, fact. But like, if you, it gave, I have to look this up. You might know this just off your dome, Sam. Was it a Pinewood Studio thing?
It was filmed in
I think
England.
it was Shepperton.
Okay. Because it has very Pinewood Studio vibes. But I think that's
either
just
Pinewood or it's Shepperton. I think it's Shepperton. But yes, it was the same studios where a lot of the original trilogy was shot. And apparently, I can't find the citation for this, but at one point, William Goldman envisioned the perfect person to play Buttercup as Carrie Fisher.
It's a very different movie.
That's a very different movie. That's a very different movie. Because like even from the book to the movie, I don't know if you've read the book, River, but
I know enough about the book to get
Buttercup
by.
in the book is not the best.
Not Wesley and Buttercup in the book are both much more bad.
Yeah,
like, Buttercup is significantly more annoying, and Wesley is much more of a dick. Like, he, when he raises his hand like he's going to slap her, he actually slaps her in the book.
Yeah, this is very much a author getting a second crack at his own work and being like, hang on, I can improve this.
I mean, and thank God, but
thank God, yeah, no, truly. When you mentioned Men in Tights earlier, I didn't get the crack off, but man, I wish we'd gotten Carrie Elways as a non-comedy Robin Hood.
Yeah,
swear to God, because this is basically his audition to be Robin Hood, and the fact that we only got him
absolutely is.
The fact that we only got him as a comedy Robin Hood is a crime, actually.
It's still a good Robin Hood story for the most part. The whole Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, I could do without the Dave Chappelle thing.
I mean, well, also like the thing too is that he's another example of actor too pretty. Casting director doesn't think, you know, will only make him not funny, and I think he managed to sort of sidestep that by doing Men in Tights, because he was able to showcase, no, I am a comedy tornado.
I think I actually did read that at one point, like, Mel Brooks did want to try and like get that Princess Bride energy back a little bit by having Robin Wright be Maid Marian for that, and it didn't work out. And Amy Yazbek is great in Men in Tights, but it would have been fun because Robin Wright, Carrie always talks about this in his book, she got stuck with the unenviable position of not really getting anything funny to do.
Yeah.
And she plays it beautifully.
I mean, she gets
so good in this movie, but she's not funny.
She's not funny, but she does get one of the sweetest moments in the movie, which is towards the end when, you know, they're like, where the fuck is Fezzik? And you hear Fezzik out the window. And Fezzik's like, I've got 4 horses, you know, in case we found the lady. Hi, lady. And she just gets the cute little wave back because they haven't officially met on screen. And like, that's cute.
She has no idea who this dude is.
Met. The last time they met, he was carting her around. But Fezzik has just such cinnamon roll, too good for this world, too pure energy.
Yeah.
But like, she knows that if he's in league with Wesley, then he's a good dude.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, shout out to Carrie Elways for basically being manhandled the entire, like, back third of this movie.
Oh, he was the one who suggested when they're up on the parapet, that thing when Andre is, like, making him nod. That was Carrie's idea.
Incredible. 12 out of 10.
I do, like, when I watch that scene and the whole thing with, like, the finger wiggle, I wonder how much of that was scripted versus improv. Because it gives very much, like, Carrie Elways absentmindedly doing that, and then Andre the Giant improvising.
Scripted. They were talking about like getting back the mobility because apparently Goldman's script was very detailed about that. But also, like, that was after they had to get through a major case of the giggles because poor Andre let out this massive fart.
Oh God!
And everybody was
everyone
laughing.
is 12 years old.
I mean, the resonance alone.
But it was also like the sound person had to take off their headphones because that's how loud the fart was in their ears.
But yeah, it's about the way that Wesley spends the back third of this movie being manhandled and carried around and hung on suits of armor like he is a
probably
coat.
For the best, given Carrie's broken toe.
That's what I'm saying.
Shoot.
Yeah. Also, I say this with a lot of love for OG Python sans what the Pythons have become in their latter years. The priest has big character created by a Python member.
100%.
Carrie suggested Michael Palin, but Michael Palin was not available because he was doing Fish Called Wanda stuff.
Oh, man.
And so then they were like, well, we have Peter Cook available. Get him before he changes his mind.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the priest, I was watching it this time around and I'm like, that, like, I could put Eric Idle in that costume.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be a similar effect. I'd actually know. I don't know if Idol is the best Python for that.
Graham Chapman. You want Chapman for that one.
But he's the only one I'm talking to at the moment. In my mental headspace.
Well, at least, I mean, Chapman's no longer with us, so you don't have to worry about that part.
They're all either dead to me, or on thin ice.
See, the thing is, I always wonder, because I've seen like tons of Pinterest Princess Bride themed wedding things, and I'm always like, do I want my own impressive clergyman at my wedding?
So I officiated my brother's wedding. I officiated my brother's wedding in 2014, and you know I opened that with marriage.
That blessed arrangement, that dweem within a dweem.
So good.
Everything.
It is so good.
Everything about this fucking owns. Like, that's the thing. Is it like 90? Like, I technically wrote notes. They're not notes. They're just my reactions to shit. Because there's no critical thoughts I have about this movie. This movie owns.
We haven't haven't really gotten to talk about him, though, because we've been jumping all over the place, but Wallace Shawn!
Wallace Shawn is essentially a bit part, and he steals the goddamn show!
The poor man was so stressed throughout filming, because his agents told him that he was the third choice after Danny DeVito and Richard Dreyfuss.
Both
so
wrong choices!
He is still not happy with his performance in the movie because he was always worried that somebody was going to fire him or that Rob Reiner wasn't happy with him, and he wasn't really giving a performance as himself so much as he was trying to do what Rob wanted and trying to do what he thought Danny DeVito would have done.
As soon as you said Danny, like I can see Danny DeVito in that role, however, it's only a post It's Always Sunny Danny DeVito that I can see.
I mean, I think the Danny DeVito thing came partially from the fact that in the book, Vizzini is described as a hunchback.
Right.
With having one leg shorter than the other and being very, very small. And I mean, Wallace Shawn still looks very small next to Mandy Patinkin and Andre the fucking Giant.
Yeah, like I was watching Cinefix, that classic media empire. Well, it's not a media empire, but Cinefix is like Watch Mojo but good. They technically got bought by IGN year before, but they're still fucking off and doing their own thing. If you need a way to like get new international recommendations, highly recommend their movie lists. They're very good. But they have a series called Things You Didn't Know, which is just like, kitschy ways of doing the IMDb trivia or whatever.
The listicle.
Yeah, but one of the things they showed off is a photo of Andre the Giant and Wilt Chamberlain holding Arnold Schwarzenegger between them, and Arnold is off the ground.
I've seen this, and he is just like minute next to them.
Yeah.
They wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to be Fezzik at one point.
Yeah,
thank God they didn't get him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's another person who's good at comedy and doesn't really get a chance to do comedy. But like, no.
You also you couldn't get the tenderness.
No.
I think Andre the Giant just has this tenderness to him. I don't know if you can call it a bromance or a full out romance with what do we think? Are Inigo and Fezzik in love?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, you don't
They're
put your hand in someone else's hand, look up into their eyes and go, it's you, unless you are very much in love with them.
They're so devoted the lines blur, I think is my official stance.
It's giving Chirrut and Blaze from Rogue One.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. I do love that there's a Spanish pun in that scene when Inigo's drunk off his ass. That one person who comes up to him to arrest him, he goes, "Ho there," and then he goes, "I do not budge, keep your ho there." Ho there is like Spanish for to fuck or to screw. At least if I'm remembering correctly. Hang on. I've searched this before, and yep, ho there is to fuck.
I can understand Spanish. I never knew that. That's amazing. Thank you.
It might be like Castilian Spanish or something.
That which would make sense because that's the one I don't know very well.
Yeah.
One thing that really struck me this time, which I don't know why it took this time to do it, but this movie is so Jewish. It is so Jewish. It is so Borscht Belt. It is so just like the Billy Crystal and what is her name? I just lost it.
Carol King.
Like
they were both younger than 40 at that time.
Yeah.
It's all makeup and it's
all makeup.
It's so cool.
And it's like there's just so much Yiddishkeit in this movie that obviously it transcends like people who have no
I have no religious training whatsoever.
Right. So like people who have no association with that kind of humor, like it still works, it still succeeds. But when that's your granddad, when like that's your mom, that's when the sense of humor is a sense of humor that's around you, it's so unmistakable. And it's so interesting given that it's Rob Reiner, it's William Golden, it's a lot of the side characters, a lot of the main characters aren't Jewish, but it still permeates.
I want to give you how Miracle Max was described in the script. William Goldman wrote, "Imagine if Mel Brooks's 2,000-year-old man were really, really old." And that's Miracle Max.
I mean, that's a sentence so Jewish it asked for mustard. Like, come on.
And Billy Crystal was allowed to improvise. He was
thank
allowed
God.
to improvise. The MLT thing was an improv, and Carrie Elwes and Rob Reiner actually both had to be banished from
Yeah, I was
set
about to say.
because they were laughing.
Yeah.
While Mandy Patinkin bruised a rib from holding in his
Not
laughter.
Yeah.
That was the only injury that Mandy Patinkin sustained.
Yeah. I mean, because here's the thing is that this is Billy Crystal very early in his career, because I had to Google it. This is 87. Okay. So Soap's been, on and off the air. Why do I know Billy Crystal from Soap? Don't worry about it.
Confused? You won't be. That's a 2%er.
Yeah.
And you two are the 2%.
But so it's very, very much the energy of it all. I just think I have Billy Crystal ingrained in my brain because, again, my 4-year-old hyperfixation movie was Monsters, Inc. And everything about Mike Wazowski is just the most.
I mean, that's another one where they just sort of they put him in the booth and said, go for it, man.
Yep.
They said, be free.
And now I'm
Put that thing back where I'm
wondering what blue jokes were cut for Billy Crystal, because there were some blue jokes for Princess Bride that were cut.
Oh man.
And now, dear God, I want them so badly.
I mean, there's got to be a blooper reel somewhere, right?
There has to be. There truly has to be.
I don't know if that's still in the era where I don't think it is. It's not still in the era where they were animating the bloopers.
Oh, no. We're talking about Princess Bride blooper reel.
Oh, God.
I mean, I want to see Princess Bride blooper reel so badly because I want to hear...
You want to hear the fart.
They wouldn't have recorded that print, but the first time Robin Wright's dress caught on fire in the fire swamp, Bill Goldman ruined the take by yelling, "Her dress is on fire! Her dress is on fire!" So they had to call cut, and Rob Reiner looked at it and went, "Bill, it's supposed to be." And then William Goldman went off on his own, and they tried to do a take again, and the sound guy's like, "Wait, what's that sound?" And somebody goes, they find William Goldman in a corner praying, and they're like, "Bill, you can't talk. The mics pick you up."
Incredible.
So he gave up and he had to leave. He wanted to be there so badly because this was his baby and he was nervous about it, but also he was so nervous that he was like, I can't be here.
God, yeah, there's this fucking movie. It just fucking owns, man. I want to know, in all of the impressive shots in this movie, in all of the great little moments in this movie, how long did the scooping Buttercup out of frame onto horseback shot take? How long did that
I was
take?
thinking that too on this rewatch. I was like, that it's so seamless.
It's so seamless.
Fluid.
It's so perfect. And as someone who has a modicum of horse riding training, I can't do that's a horse at a full canter. They would have had to start 3 steps back.
Right.
Well, it was probably a stunt man who picked her up rather than Chris Sarandon.
That's still an impressive scoop to get it in frame, to get her to not knock the camera when you've got her, to get her onto the horse, in any capacity onto the horse.
I'm still not sure what part of her body they grabbed to lift her up.
Correctly, he lifts her up, and then there's a cut, so we don't really see her get seated on the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
also, she's riding in front of him, which feels weird because the way the
I wonder
motion
if she
goes.
Notices that Humperdinck has no genitalia, because I have to assume he has no genitalia after he jumps onto the horse. No problem.
Every time I see that shot, I'm like, sir, sir, are you okay?
Sir.
Do you need ice?
I mean, it's the 1400s, right? He's probably wearing a codpiece.
We don't know what time it is because Australia fucking exists.
Yeah.
Shout out to Australia existing, for real.
And somehow being peopled with criminals. No, there are Aboriginal people there too, and they're minding their own business, and they would like you to leave.
The emus are on their side.
Fucking emus, man. Fucking cassowaries.
Maybe iocane powder comes from emus.
No. Iocane powder comes from cassowaries. Who the fuck are you kidding?
I don't fully know what a cassowary is, so I'll take.
They're like emus, but worse.
We're getting off track again. Oh God.
Us never.
In this economy, I love that the one good thing that Humperdinck does in this entire movie is that he is a wolfhound. Good puppy. Good dog.
Yeah.
He's an Irish wolfhound. I love Irish wolfhounds. They're so weird.
The Pit of Despair is iconic, but in the original book, that was called the Zoo of Death.
Yeah.
And he had a ton of wild, crazy animals in there. And Inigo and Fezzik would have gone on basically a Dungeons and Dragons run through different levels.
Yeah, he keeps them all
of
in
like
there because
snakes and bats and shit.
Because he's like
and
this
in the book,
excellent
Humperdinck
hunter.
is introduced taking down an orangutan.
Okay.
Also, the only note I have about the Pit of Despair scenes are the difference between dicking around and science is writing it down.
Now remember, this is for posterity.
I love that the entire kingdom hears the 50-year scream. The absolute reaction shots of everyone hearing it is...
I just had a thought. Is Wallace Shawn the only person speaking in an American accent in the entire movie?
What is Humperdinck doing?
I think so.
Humperdinck is doing like a not.
Chris Sarandon's doing a British accent of some kind.
It's something. It's somewhere between transatlantic and RP, and it's sort of muddled in the middle there.
Yeah,
I mean, they were shooting on location in England, so most of the bit players were English.
Also, I think Christopher Sarandon is like has an English parent, I believe. I don't recall.
Well, Robin Wright is American, but she has an English stepfather, so she was raised
and Robin Wright's
British culture.
And Robin Wright's doing that like half transatlantic accent thing. Like it's not a full. It's clearly an American doing a British accent, but it's not.
Well, Carrie L was praised it highly, and he would know.
Well, he's also half English. He's also half American.
No, he had an American stepfather, but he grew up in England.
That's right. I just remember when he was on Leverage and being like, wow, his accent's incredible. Let me look this up.
I mean, I guess
Chris Sarandon was raised in West Virginia.
All right, never mind.
I mean, I guess it's possible that in this fantasy world where Florin and Gilder still exist, being Sicilian means you sound like a New York Jewish man.
Like, it's so funny because even Miracle Max and Valerie, like they're doing Borscht Belt.
So Vizzini's not the only one with an American accent.
I guess I meant like a neutral American accent as opposed to like.
I wouldn't call what Wallace Shawn's voice neutral at all.
You know what? That's fair. That's one of those. What do you mean I have an accent kind of moment? So you're right.
Wallace Shawn is Long Island, New York.
Yeah. No,
It's Jewish Long Island, New York.
It's very that.
It is my vodka aunt's accent.
I'm not sure if this had already happened, but do you ever stop and think about the fact that Christopher Guest is married to Jamie Lee Curtis?
I think about that way more than I should.
Am I supposed to think about that sort of thing?
I don't know. It's just weird to think about this guy whom I mainly know as Count Rugen in The Princess Bride, and then I'm like, yep, he's married to Laurie Strode.
Yep.
Well, the thing is that you have Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. I have her as either the mom from Freaky Friday or the lady from the Activia commercials. Jill,
that
you were
doesn't make it better, though.
Jill, you were mentioning your age earlier. Hi, hello, I'm 23.
Right, like that's what I'm saying. Like the frames of reference are so different because like when I saw this, we didn't see it in the movies, but we could have. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I have only seen this movie on DVD.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that there aren't more midnight screenings because, like, Carrie L was in his book. He talked about, like, I don't remember if it was Carrie or if it was an insert from Billy Crystal, but they've talked about, like, screenings where people yell out lines with the dialogue and, like, they have peanuts to throw during Fezzik's most iconic.
Right.
Anybody want a peanut? But,
I
like,
think
I've never seen a full shadow cast, and now I desperately want a full shadow cast.
I think part of the problem is that especially in the 90s when that would have been most likely to happen, the Rocky Horror just so dominated that space. And I think the only reason that Repo even got in it as much as it did was because shadowcast weren't quite as popular.
Repo is such a trip anyway.
I don't have space in my brain to think about Repo right now. I just don't.
Smart. Wish that were me. Add it to the list of movies I was introduced to way too fucking young. But no, I think the other thing about a shadowcast of The Princess Bride is it is such a, like, Rocky Horror, I think, can only be improved with a shadowcast. I don't know if you can improve upon Princess Bride with a shadowcast. I think you'd have to do something along the lines of, like, a quote along. Like, there's a...
Yeah,
fair enough.
one of the things that the cinemas up in Toronto are doing, I don't know if it's an international thing, but they're doing as part of the 33rd and a half anniversary for Monty Python and the Holy Grail, they're doing a Holy Grail quote-a-thon where they're doing a special release of the movie where like some of the quotes are just taken out and the audience can, yell them out or whatever. I don't actually know. I didn't look into it. I got distracted by shiny objects. But yeah, like the thing about The Princess Bride is that it is so memorized by everyone who has ever seen it. Like, again, there are certain families where I'm pretty positive you are born with it imprinted on your brain already. It cannot be improved by a shadow cast. So why would you mess with perfection, Like, I feel like that's the energy for it.
I guess so. I mean, maybe that's also why they've taken so long on getting that musical thing happening. So, how much do you guys know about the lore of the musicals? Because my mom, after we finished, my mom looked at me and was like, how come The Princess Bride has never been a musical? I'm like, well, there was going to be an attempt at a musical by Adam Guttall, but the thing is, William Goldman wanted like 70% of the profits or royalties. I don't remember what it was exactly, but Goldman was only going to write the libretto, and Guttall was supposed to be writing the music and the lyrics, and they weren't able to come to an agreement over that, so Guttall's score got scrapped, and then it was just kind of in development hell, and now Goldman has passed, may his memory be a blessing, and like Disney has it now, so they supposedly have it in development, but we haven't heard anything from them.
Why would you want a Princess Bride musical?
I mean, what I think the better question is, why would you want a Princess Bride musical after we have lost Adam Schlesinger?
I didn't even think of him as a possibility, but I can see your logic. But there is actually one other semi-Princess Bride musical in the mix, and that was brought to us by Andy Karl, who did 2 demo tracks. He did a love duet for Wesley and Buttercup called As You Wish.
Look deeply in my eyes.
I can see your
see thoughts I cannot hide.
You can see mine.
There you will find the answers to a dream I keep inside.
As you wish, I'll do whatever you would ask of me. As you wish, speak your dreams, your desires. I swear to make your dreams come to be. Wish me to fly, I'll soar above. We'll take the skies on wings of love.
And he did a group number called Yet He Gains for the Cliffs of Insanity. And he did like all the male voices, and I really like both those songs.
Your answers, now the thing you please understand.
I think The Princess Bride could be a really interesting stage musical. I think that, I'm always a sucker for puppetry on stage, and I want to see some ROUS puppets, but I think it could be a cool way to explore bits of Goldman's text that had to be left on the cutting room floor, and, I think it could be interesting. I'm not against the idea of turning movies into musicals.
I am on the fence about them as a general practice. There are some movies where I'm like, how? And there are some movies where I'm like, yeah, sure, fucking go for it. Heathers and Legally Blonde are in the latter category. American Psycho is in the former. But I struggle, because there are certain movies where I'm like, okay, here's where you'd put a musical number. Or when you tell me that X movie is being made into a musical, I'm like, all right, you do a musical number for this, you do a musical number for that, you do a musical number for that exchange, and maybe you do a joke song here, and maybe you do a big ballad here. You tell me you're making The Princess Bride into a musical, and the only 2 numbers that come to my head immediately is one, I don't think you do a Wesley Buttercup duet, but you do it at the end of the movie. You do that as part of the exchange post the quip about so few perfect breasts in this world.
In a children's movie.
This movie's very PG, y'all. But the only other one that I'm thinking of that comes to me right off the top of my head. Well, actually, no, technically 2 just came to me. One, you do one for Inigo. You get Inigo's whole thing is done as a song.
Yeah, Inigo makes for a perfect I Want song.
And like if you want it, you could have Mandy Patinkin play the grandfather now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go walk into a lake about that. But the other one you get is something akin to Sam and Jill. I don't know if you've seen the Percy Jackson musical or if you've heard anything from it, but the exchange when Sally is describing how she and Poseidon met, something like that for Wesley explaining how Wesley as Dread Roberts explaining how, Wesley came into his ship, that sort of thing.
That makes sense.
That's part of what I love about it, seeing how things transform, but there are arguments for, arguments against.
I can actually see a really good. So it doesn't. I had an idea and then I realized it didn't work because the whole thing was the please. That's what I remember. And
God, I love that moment.
But
so
much. And then imagine just that whole thing and then ripping off the mask. And the closing line is as you
you bring in something akin to a love theme early.
Yeah.
And you do it instead of doing it like, something like, I first saw him in the water coming out of the morning mist, you do it like the end of In a Crowd of Thousands where Dimitri drops to his knee and it's like, Your Highness, and it's like, oh God, ow. Anyway, that musical owns I Will Hear Nothing to the contrary.
Is that the Anastasia musical?
Did I say anything? I didn't say anything.
You had a look, Sam.
I had a look more to do with the fact, I think the reason people ask about whether or not there's a musical is because they want more of it in their lives. Like, people have also conceptualized what a Princess Bride dark ride would look like at a Disney park.
Interesting.
I have no idea where they think they would put it, because I'm pretty sure there's no Florin Pavilion at World Showcase.
No,
but imagine if there was.
You put it in Hollywood Studios, first of all.
Yeah.
You put it in Hollywood Studios. I don't know where you'd put it in Hollywood Studios. Probably, if they hadn't absolutely decimated the backlot to do Batu, I'd put it in that corner of the universe. But they decimated the backlot to put in Batu. And it's something akin to Ichabod Crane, where or the Wild Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, where it is a bunch of you're running through the
tableaus.
Yeah, you do something like that because it's the only way you're gonna really do it. But also I think a dark ride does it a disservice. But c'est la vie. What do I know?
I get the instinct. Hell, I remember Adobe Flash Princess Bride climbing games that I would play in study hall when I was supposed to be doing my homework in high school.
That is the most 90s thing I've ever heard in my life.
I did that in the 2010s!
I was gonna say, that's a bit later than that.
But,
I'm old, I'm not that old.
If Star Wars is the perfect story for kids to play pretend in sci-fi, this is the perfect story to play pretend in fantasy. And
if for some reason you didn't get into Lord of the Rings.
Well, no, I think even if you did get into Lord of the Rings, because this is so much simpler than Lord of the Rings. It doesn't come with baggage. It's swashbuckling, and it's
It also doesn't come with baggins.
Boo! Oh, boo! But there's no fate of the world crisis in this book. It's just a simple matter of relationships and love, and I love that so much.
Sam,
I love this book. If I ever choose to procreate, this is the story I will read to my children.
Sam, what I'm learning very quickly is you and I play pretend very differently. Because part of the reason that Star Wars appealed to me as a kid and still appeals to me is that there are so many corners where no one has talked about. There are so many, unanswered questions and little rabbit holes you can go digging into, or nooks and crannies that you can go burrow yourself into, make shit up as you go along, and no one's gonna tell you otherwise because the canon can't override it. Even if EU is still canon, fucking no one's gonna look at you too hard. The reason I have so much trouble imagining The Princess Bride as anything else is because it handshake, I guess a lot of sitcoms. There aren't a lot of, this movie is so tight and so succinct and so, perfect that there's nothing for my brain to go burrowing into and go, digging off.
Consider who made it. It was produced by Norman Lear.
Yeah.
It was directed by Rob Reiner. Like these are
These are
people
sitcom
who are
guys.
these are not just sitcom guys. These are like the
King sitcom guys.
yeah. Like
And
the people who created the genre.
Yeah, so this is something that like, and it's not a knock. This movie is great and fantastic. But this is when I was a kid, the things that always fascinated me were the unanswered questions. The can I create my own little stand-in to go running around in this world? And the answer to The Princess Bride is no. It's just too tight. There's no
anything you could do would be before or after the action of the story.
Right. Like, you don't even know if technically
my
Inigo
version
died.
of playing pretend was just recreating things. So
no,
right.
man.
You and I did play pretend very differently.
Oh yeah, no, man, I was creating stories and elaborate drama, and I always end up playing the masked characters, and I really should have signaled something about my non-binary identity early on.
I did get to a point where most of them are taken down now, and I'm not going to tell you what fandoms they were, but there was a time when really the majority of what I did with my fanfic was just reskinning Princess Bride with different characters.
See,
from different fandoms.
My first
fusion fics were my jam.
My first two fandoms were was the 1992 Newsies and Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which were both very big on make your own OC and build your own character. And I have since walked into every fandom with a bag full of OCs and been told to fuck off. Which is why fanfiction and I have a tempestuous relationship at best at the moment. Or at least published fanfic. I still write things for friends. But, like, it's just a different way of engaging with stories, and I understand the instinct to reskin things. Trust me, motherfucker, I love a good reskin AU. Hell yeah.
I definitely have on a computer that has long since been melted down for parts, had a notepad file that was a Princess Bride version of Daria.
That sounds fucking amazing.
Who was who?
It was called The Cynic Bride, and
12 out of 10.
Jane was Inigo, and instead of it being her dad who was killed, it was her brother. It was Trent.
Okay.
Oh god, we've barely talked about Inigo and his quest, and
it's all fun and games until it isn't.
Like, oh my, I feel like everybody knows the story of Mandy and that final line with the Count. And how he lost his father to a battle with cancer, and he's like, if I get this right, for just 1 minute, my father will come back. And he gives that line of, I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
It is all fun and games, and it is all a joke.
So not to get too deep on Maine, but I think this was the first time I watched this movie since the passing of my father, and that moment.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But like that, thinking about that in that moment was definitely one of those things where every time you watch a movie, you bring something new to it. You bring some new lived experience that adds another shade, another nuance to that moment, to any moment. And in that case, that absolutely, I had that moment. Sorry if I got too deep on that one.
You're fine. You're fine.
And it's also incredible because this was the first time I noticed Inigo gives Rugen the exact same wounds that Rugen gave him. Slashes across the cheeks, stab in each side, and then he goes for the heart. Although, if you read the book, Inigo tries to go to cut out the Count's heart entirely, and the Count dies of fright when he hears, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. And I kind of like to imagine that, even though it does imply that it's a stab through the heart that gets Rugen, I think he still died of fright, because God, Mandy looks terrifying.
Oh, he's
terrifying.
In that moment. He's the delivery on that is just unparalleled.
There's that whole Tumblr post about how Inigo is such an outlier and the revenge won't bring your loved ones back, and that's why nothing can save you.
Yeah. I wrote in my notes, IRL vengeance bad. Narrative vengeance owns. Also, I love all the goddamn swords and knives in this fucking movie. I will briefly
oh my
take
God,
over
they're
for
so
Mike.
pretty.
Every single knife and sword in this movie looks great.
Yeah, they understood
And
the
the
assignment.
costumes look great, and the sets look great, and even when the effects are cheeseball, they look great because it looks like a storybook.
Yeah.
Yeah,
England is so fucking pretty.
this handshake labyrinth. I know that is a guy in a suit, but it owns, and I don't care.
Yup. Like literally the only time that my suspension of disbelief is really even approaching the breaking point is the fight scene, is the landscape where the fight scene happens, the first sword fight, because it really is giving like
Stage.
it's giving like
Yeah,
the
that
fake rocks with Shatner
is-
fighting the Gorn, like it's giving that. But then the rest of the fight happens and I don't care.
Yeah.
It's such a good fight, and there's the only time a double was used was for the somersaults and the flips.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is Carrie and Mandy.
My only suspension of disbelief, shudder, was Buttercup. You remember his eyes so well,
That
and you
part.
can't look past the mask. That's the
Girl.
only part of him you can see, baby girl.
Honey, sweetie, baby, come on. I was thinking that too yesterday because it's like,
I mean, she also doesn't she doesn't recognize his voice.
well, he also
The voice is understandable.
So this brings me to a thing that I thought I had yesterday. This is the spicy corner. I don't know if this is OBKB for the podcast. So feel free to cut this if you want. But I was thinking about the whole like her ordering him around and the whole as you wish. It's all very DS and like has this sort of like consensual.
I wish you hadn't put that into my brain.
Sorry. I can stop.
See, this is stuff where I feel like I need to reference the book because there are things that are relevant to this, but I also want to point out, yeah, she talks about his eye, but I think it's also she still thinks that he's dead.
Yeah.
So
There's
she's
that.
not looking for that. Because speaking from the experience of losing a loved one, not a partner, but like if you keep looking for your partner or recognizing things about a partner that you've lost or someone that you've cared about in every person you see, it's going to drive you fucking insane.
Yeah.
And Buttercup has been basically dead to the world for the last 5 years.
Yeah. No, it's
I think there's an emotional explanation for why she wouldn't put the pieces together until she hears those 3 beautiful words.
yeah. The conclusion of my earlier point though is that when he comes back and he's the man in black, there's a role reversal. All right, I'm done.
I mean, yes. Motherfucker, man, what the fuck did they put in Carrie Elways? What the fuck did they put in Carrie Elways?
I don't know, but we're lucky.
I'll even excuse the shitty mustache.
Man, how did he make that
mustache.
work? How did he make that work?
The makeup department.
Yo.
Because it had to be fake because they shot out of order.
That's right.
How, man? How do you even make a fake mustache look good?
Carrie motherfucking Elwes.
Isn't he the other man in a rom-com or something? Like he's the other man in a prominent rom-com where he's up against
I
like
think
someone.
it was Liar Liar.
Yeah, or he's up
Yes.
against Jim Carrey, and you're just like, how, bestie, how?
Like
I truly don't know. Carrie Elwes should have had a much better career, and I'm glad that he's having a bit of a revival at the moment.
Yeah, he's in the other thing I know him from is like, again, I haven't seen it, but I have seen Maggie Mae Fish's video about the remake of Black Christmas.
Oh, I was talking more about the fact that he's in Zack Snyder's Not Another Star Wars movie, aka Rebel Moon.
oh, I didn't. How did Zack Snyder get him for that? My God.
Listen,
What?
Zack Snyder got a lot of people for that movie.
a paycheck's a paycheck, man.
I mean, fair. Wow.
I mean, more power to him, man. Get that bread.
I don't think I need to ask, given how much we've just been gushing, but for the sake of formality, is the Force with it?
Yeah, the Force
Yeah.
is fucking with it.
I would say the Force is with it, and more importantly, the Schwartz.
I will put Spaceballs on the docket at some point.
Oh,
This is
God.
me. This is me early on calling dibs on that one too, because that was my other Jill is sick. Let's rent a movie.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes, so I guess we're all dwelling in the dark side. The Force is fucking with it.
Of course it is, baby!
If by some miracle you have not seen this movie, 1, why the fuck are you listening to a podcast about it? 2, go see it.
Go watch it. It's worth it.
When
Yo
will
ho
then
ho
be
if
now?
you have to.
Wait. We blew right past the perfect casting. Pedro Pascal is Inigo Montoya.
That's
Again,
the
Princess
home
Bride
movie.
home movie.
That's true.
It's in there.
It's in there.
Diego Luna is also in there.
Who
Diego
plays
Luna.
Fezzik?
A lot of people, but among them, Dave Bautista.
Amazing.
Incredible content!
Amazing.
Absolutely recommending it. And if we're recommending that, I think we better get into our other pluggables.
You can find me on Twitter at DreamsRebel. It is fully hockey season. I have nothing to apologize for. Or you can find me on WordPress at filmlion.wordpress.com. Filmlion is all one word. Or is it hyphenated? I'll send it to Sam and it'll be in the show notes, where you can read my thoughts about television as I have them. Because I figured I'd put that professional opinion haver epithet to good use.
There you go. You can find me on Bluesky as Mix Labradorite, MXLABRADORITE. And you can also find me on YouTube as Jill Friedman, because that's my name.
As for me, I will ask that you keep the spirit of Star Wars alive by supporting artists through the Entertainment Community Fund, and by taking action to support anti-imperial and anti-colonial movements across the globe, partially by using links provided below, and by taking action in your community. And you can find me on the wider internet as La Femme Fictionale, including on YouTube, Twitter, and Tumblr, where you can also find the blog for this show. Our theme music is provided by Refractory Period, the two girls' one-beat synth-pop sensation. You can follow them on Instagram at Refractory Period the band. To further support this podcast, please subscribe to us on your platform of choice, leave reviews, consider joining Patreon, and share with your friends to boost our visibility. And now it's time to turn to the Chance Cube to decide where our journey takes us next.
Holy shit.
So what's the
Jill,
next
would you like-
one?
The next one is Red Tails.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, you'll get to see next month. We'll see you for our Black History Month episode. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay beautiful, and may the Force be with you.